broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Happy St. Patty's Day, y'all! It is an exciting night here at the AfterBuzz studio. Welcome to episode 8 of your Lucha Underground after show right here on AfterBuzz TV. My name, as always, is Ty Matthews. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA. Jared Gilkerson is out of the studio, but of course, my trusty co-host, Jimbo Slice. Where can they find you, Jimbo?
Sir. You can find me on Twitter at the Jimbo Slice. That's the with 2 E's. And we have a very special guest.
The specialist guest.
Oh, man.
We've got the co-executive producer of Lucha Underground himself, Mr. Chris DeJoseph, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here on AfterBuzz, and let's hope the power of hyper-positivity,
Hyper-optimism.
Hyper-optimism.
There you go.
Will guide us through the show.
We will be, well, that's what we're going to be. Oh man, there's so much to get into. Before we get into the episode proper, let's talk about your role with the show, everything like that. How did your involvement with Lucha Underground come about?
Gosh, well, I mean, I worked for WWE. I was a writer for them for close to 7 years. Mm-hmm. And I moved back out west to LA. I worked on some reality shows, Big Brother. Redneck Island, Gator Boys, you do a bunch of different stuff. You're a freelancer out
Naturally.
here. You work on everything. And I was working on a show, and I found out that somebody, you're always connecting with people and always, trying to get your resume to the next place so you can get another job. And I was told I had an interview with Survivor, but at the same time I was hearing rumors of this wrestling show that was going to happen with Mark Burnett. And at the time I was pretty much kind of done with wrestling. I thought, okay, I'm going to take I need a break. I had 7 years on the road with the WWE. I was like, okay, I've had a little bit of enough of it. And then I went to an interview to go work on Survivor, and the co-executive producer of Survivor, Matt Van Wagenen, said, hey, dude, my brother is doing a wrestling show. You need to talk to him. Forget Survivor. You need to talk to him about this show that they're doing about Lucha Libre. So I met with Eric Van Wagenen, who is one of our executive producers, and we had a great meeting, and it just seemed like we got along real well, and the next thing you know, they called me and brought me onto the show, and we just kind of started to take the original concepts and kind of work it and try to make the show a reality and make it work, and kind of add little special tweaks here and there, and find talent and do everything we can to make what you see now.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask if there were any elements of the original idea that we don't see right now.
I mean, yeah. There were so many wild things that were thrown out there. A lot of ones that I personally weren't necessarily a fan of, but that's the creative process.
Sure.
Things get thrown out there. If you don't throw out the craziest ideas and have them rejected, sometimes you'll never kind of find the balance that is the show. And this show is constantly still evolving. So there was a lot of ideas that didn't see the light of day, and I prefer
like a sleep with the fishes piranha deathmatch.
Yeah, we did. That was not in the cards.
Sure, or maybe a Human Torch match like Vampire.
Yes, there we go. Exploding casket match or something.
Right, exactly. Now I remember when I first heard about Lucha Underground, I had a lot of thoughts about, shows like WSX, Lucha Libre Underground, even, the Wrestling Revolution Project, things like that were kind of attempting to be these sort of special one-off entities that didn't necessarily, hit or anything. Yeah. Why do you think Lucha Underground is hitting in the ways that those didn't?
Well, I think that was I'm a wrestling fan my entire life, so that was one of the things I knew that we wanted to avoid. I knew that it had been tried before. And that we should try to steer clear from, if we can, some of the things that I think, made those shows not as successful. And I think we started with kind of a delicate balance of like we knew we had to have some name people. We knew we had these crazy, amazing luchadors from Mexico, and then all we kind of had to do is kind of create this cool environment. And Eric had done the Contender before, and he had seen all these like old warehouses and stuff like that, and it was his idea, like, hey, let's go to this warehouse. And we found this one in Boyle Heights, and it was a dump. And when we walked into it, we're like, this is incredible.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, our art department came in and all this stuff, and they kind of just created this world where there was like this old shack office next to it. I'm like, God, I don't know what we're going to do with that. And the idea just kind of popped up, like, hey, why don't we have it like the owner can come in and out, so it's like Taxi or something like that. You know
Sure.
what I mean? And that's just kind of how the show started to evolve. The vignettes and all that stuff, we always knew we wanted to do multi-camera. There's nothing I hate more. A big pet peeve of mine was always at WWE when they'd have to shoot a vignette and everybody's standing next to each other like,
right.
Hey, how you doing? You want to fight tonight? It's like nobody really talks like that. And then with Robert's influence on the show, we wanted to try to make it as cinematic and cool as possible, in kind of the vein of him and his network. And that's kind of how things started to evolve. You watch those first episodes now, and the ones now, they're completely different.
Sure.
But it was a learning process. We had to kind of feel it out. Part of us, we didn't know if we'd make it, past the first 8 episodes.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
But we trusted in the talent and in the crew and everything like that, and it ended up working out so far. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Ty?
Yes, sir.
Really quickly, we have a question from the chat. Mr. Matt Ward asks who Chris's favorite wrestler is, but I'm going to modify the question a little bit. Who is your favorite wrestler going into Season 1, and who is your favorite wrestler in the company now?
I like it.
Gosh.
I like it.
Wow, that's a tough question, You guys got to put me on the spot here tonight. So he's asking, not my favorite wrestler of all time, just my favorite
toss
wrestler
that out there too. Why not?
Sure, why not?
I was always a Randy Savage fan, Ric Flair, but in the end, and I got to know him very well. I'm a big Shawn Michaels fan. So to me, Shawn Michaels is the greatest wrestler of all time.
100%. Yeah.
I just love everything he does, the way he sells his matches. He's just an incredible heel and babyface, and I've just always been a fan. And once I got to meet the man, I became more of a fan of his. But as far as Lucha Underground, gosh, I really love all the guys. I would probably, if you guys put me on the spot, I'd have to say Mundo and Puma.
Okay.
Those guys are kind of the foundation of the show at the very beginning. So,
right.
I think, and they're just incredible, amazing athletes. They have kind of they've had a rivalry that's just kind of continued on, and we kind of will get into it.
We see a little bit of that tonight, sure.
So yeah, it's I guess you put me on the spot there. I would say probably those guys, just because they're kind of the forefathers of Lucha Underground,
Sure, definitely.
Is there anyone you want to see in the temple coming up for Season 3?
Gosh, there's so many people out there that I'd love to see in the
That'd be a
temple.
long list, I'm sure.
If I had to say anybody, I'd say, I'd love to have CM Punk come into the temple.
Right.
I'd love to.
If we're fantasy fucking it. Now, speaking of favorites, one of my favorites was Hayabusa. We start out with a dedication to the late great Hayabusa. Just recently passed, but if you don't know Hayabusa, go out, find some of his stuff to watch. Invented the Phoenix Splash, invented so many innovative maneuvers that you'll see for years and years to come. So that was a nice touch. But we start out with you were talking about the vignettes of the show, and those have really become the hallmark of the show, sort of. Obviously the in-ring action is incredible, but I think one of the things that really sets it apart are these backstage vignettes. We see Phoenix holding the Gift of the Gods title in the locker room, and we see an interaction between him and Katrina, but it's kind of a different Katrina than we're used to seeing. It's an emotional Katrina. It's kind of this beautiful moment where she's she's kind of admitting that she's tried everything to destroy this guy that has 1,000 lives, and that she says, it's your powers I desire, they could give me life again. So we've been speculating on kind of the nature of Katrina for weeks, but it seems like she's definitely Deadsville. She's certainly deceased. It seems like that so far. She's trying to get these powers from Phoenix, and she says, sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. And she's crying, and we're so used to seeing Katrina not showing any emotion, let alone crying and then kissing Phoenix. And we've got these sweeping camera angles and stuff like that, and it's a much more emotionally complex moment than I think we've seen, and it really kind of speaks to the power of the writing. And so I think if you could talk a little about kind of creating these moments and sort of trying to set Lucha Underground apart in that way from other wrestling shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really just kind of ties into the story and you know, not only Phoenix but Mill and Katrina's whole entire story and where they come from, is to kind of drop this moment of that she's torn in a way, and I think that struggle with characters is a good thing to have sometimes. What are her motivations? I mean, she in love with Phoenix, but she's in love with him, but at the same time, she's faced with the dilemma that in order for her to come back to life, she has to destroy him. So it's kind of a double-sided coin for her, and I think it's pretty poetic and beautiful. I love like when they make out and that power music kicks in. It's like
right.
You know, it was pretty awesome and a fun scene to do. And I thought it added a lot of layers to both characters and to the entire story and their relationship, especially knowing what was going to happen later on. Right,
exactly. And the you know, you mentioned the music, and that is something that we don't really get to see in backstage segments and wrestling shows because they are shot in that way that you mentioned before, where it's supposed to be just kind of like this fly on the wall, and it's not really cinematic the way that Lucha Underground is, with these swells, you know, these musical cues and these camera angles, things like that. What did you think of the scene, Jimbo?
I thought it was crazy how she was like talking about her fate and going against her fate, and had she not done that, her and Phoenix might be ruling the temple together. And then I love when she like disappeared in the kiss, like,
right,
and he's just like, where'd she go?
That's what she does.
That was great. Yeah.
Definitely. So we kick off the show match-wise with a Lucha Underground Trios Championship match. We heard a little bit about this last week. We know the stipulation that if Ivelisse, Angelico, and Son of Havoc fail to capture these Trios titles, they are gone for good. They're hitting that open road permanently. And so obviously we get a good idea of the stakes. And I love this match, but I love the interactions between Ivelisse and Angelico and Son of Havoc. I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of, I guess, from a writer's perspective, how do you try and break stories for a show like this? How do you plan out arcs, things like that, especially ones as complicated as this one?
Well, I mean, in a way, this storyline kind of was created by the believers in the temple. We had Ivelisse and Son of Havoc on a certain path, and they were going to cross paths with Angelico, and all of them were going to kind of fight each other. But we noticed that the audience just kind of kept getting behind this bunch of misfits, and then the idea came out to, hey, maybe we should put these guys in this trio tournament, and then all the trios tournaments all the teams will be kind of crazy, but this team will somehow find a way, even though they hate each other, to work together, and then they're kind of stuck with each other. It might be kind of fun and interesting, and people have just embraced the hell out of it. And I think when you took that story of them not being able to work together, and then the famous "the crossbody," as Angelico likes to call it, it was. They were in danger. They didn't want to fight together, but it took a moment like that for that entire group to kind of be like they were willing to sacrifice for the greater good and for the team. So it's a lot of fun, definitely, to plan out stuff with them and to write for them, because they're kind of a little bit of comic relief and sometimes what is a very dramatic and insane show. So it's kind of cool to see their kind of normal, everyday quarrels as opposed to, you know, you failed me, now you must die, or right. So they're a lot of fun. But I mean, I guess as far as like long-term booking and story and writing the stories and the arcs, it's just really just kind of sitting down and thinking about where do we want these characters to be and how are they going to get there on that path, and what kind of obstacles are they going to run into in their way. So we have an idea where we want to go with them, and you guys will see it unfold.
Definitely.
Excited.
Now, what did you think of this match? The match itself,
I loved how like Rick Knox couldn't get control of it at the beginning. He was just like, what do I do? And then he's just like letting them go, and then Ivelisse hit a nasty chop, and I'm like, well, she chops as loud as Pentagon Jr.
Right, exactly.
And then I loved the like three-way move.
Right, those charging in the corners. Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just kept hitting the other guys. That was great.
Yeah, a lot of what I love, one of the things that I love about this trio is just how in sync they are. You know, we saw that tandem dive, the somersault plancha from Angelico, and then the Acai moonsault from Son of Havoc. It's things like that. They're so interconnected, and it makes it such a compelling thing to watch. You know, we haven't really seen too much of the Disciples of Death in the ring, so it was nice to see them as well. But you know, we see him try and pull off the switcheroo. Doesn't work quite so well.
I love Matt Strecker. Killer Bees.
Just straight up.
Killer Bees.
V. Brian
Hey,
Blair.
that's the Killer Bees switcheroo.
Jim Brunzell. Got to get a Killer Bees reference in there.
It was better than saying Twin Magic.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yes,
There you
definitely.
go. Exactly. We're going OG.
Ivelisse had a nice Rana off the ring apron.
Yeah,
So,
and that was
really
one
great.
of those things. I love that overhead angle, but you miss this like amazing off the apron
Yeah, it was
Rana from
really good.
Ivelisse. She hits the Rana to set that up. After the failed switcheroo, we see the big high knee from Angelico, the crucifix buckle bomb, and then the shooting star on Barrio Negro. And then 3 seconds later, we see brand new trios champions, and we know that Mil Muertes and Katrina are not going to be happy.
Oh man.
And just, yeah, I love kind of how hot and how this finish sort of built on top of itself. You know, just from... Angelico has some of the best hot tags in the business right now between the kind of capoeira style kicks, the high knee. It's such high energy. And it was good to see, obviously, them finally kind of fulfill that destiny of winning the trios titles, keeping their jobs. You kind of get the sense that Disciples of Death are not going to be long for this world after having failed Katrina and Mil Muertes.
Yeah, we'll get to a video later.
But
that
it's
kinda that.
yeah, but it was phenomenal stuff. For right now, real quick, we'll get back to the episode. As we said, our co-host Jared Gilkerston is not with us tonight, but he is involved in a brand new project that I want to tell you a little bit about. Are you curious about a celebrity boyfriend's midlife crisis? Do you enjoy hearing stories about behind the scenes of Hollywood? Are you amused by old TV and movie references? That's a hat trick right there.
Yeah.
Then you'll love The Tomorrow Show with Kevin Undergaro. So join AfterBuzz creator Anne Marie Menuno's fiance, newly engaged, Kevin Undergaro, along with AfterBuzzer co-hosts Roxy Stryer, Ashley Daniels, our own Jared Gilkerson, and many others for all the insanity. You can watch that live Monday and Thursday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time on thetomorrowshow.com, or you can subscribe and download free on iTunes. You can also find us on iTunes. You can find Lucha Underground on iTunes, all that stuff. So go to thetomorrowshow.com for more information. Let's get back to the episode.
Oh yeah.
And so we've got, as we talked about before, we talked about this kind of rivalry between Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo. And I love this scene because Prince Puma, he's kind of like, he's the archetypical hero of the show. You know, if Lucha Underground were to follow the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, Prince Puma is kind of the archetype. And so he's going to work on this heavy bag, and Mundo just comes in and like giant boxing gloves, just throwing like the weakest punches, talking about how he's going to take Puma to Slamtown, which I talked about this last week is my new favorite catchphrase. Like, we've got Mundo and Puma here, but I love Mundo and Cage's rivalry because it's such 80s wrestling. Like,
It reminds me of Warrior versus Rick Rude.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, the one really jacked guy, and then
Yeah.
the dude who's like just this jacked, but not as like huge. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I was like, oh, these guys are great.
And yeah, and so he's talking about Aztec warfare coming up. He's talking about taking Puma to Slamtown, and then we get these little touches of like the Puma noises when we see
He's
Prince
pissed
Puma
and you just hear the growl,
just
and then he,
glowering.
like,
Yeah.
punches through the punching
And just
bag.
I love that moment, that scene of him punching through the heavy bag. We've seen a lot of kind of iconic visual moments, so to speak. Do you have any favorites that you over the course of the show?
I mean, there's a bunch of them. I love Vampiro smashing his head against the mirror.
Oh, so good.
I I'm Bale being killed.
Right. I wanted to ask you about that because it's not often that you see someone legitimately die in a pro wrestling show. My man Bale got his head eaten by Matanza because we were talking about, the crossbody, and that win is what led to the crew being punished by Dario Cueto and what led to Bale just getting eaten. I wanted to talk about how kind of it seems like you guys are creating something obviously that's much bigger than a wrestling show.
Yeah.
What kind of goes into elements of like, hey, let's do this that we know no other show is gonna make.
Sometimes it's really just kind of sitting around, and at the beginning, like, we knew we couldn't really push the envelope too much. Then we started slowly doing some of the wacky stuff we wanted, and once people were like, Drago is a real dragon, and they were cool with it, I kind of felt like, okay, guys, we got a little bit of a hall pass to go do some more stuff. Let's do a little bit. Let's do a little bit more stuff. But let's keep pushing it. And then, once we got away with murder, it was like...
Literally, yeah.
We can have fun. I mean, we pretty much kind of look at, like, hey, let's make this a sci-fi / crime drama / fantasy show / romantic comedy.
I like how murder paved the way for a nunchuck fight.
That's exactly right. Glowing nunchucks at that.
Glowing space-time traveling interdimensional nunchuck fight.
Thank you, Bale, for dying.
Right, exactly. Oh, poor Benny. We've got dragons, we've got time traveling space luchadors, and we've you mentioned that there's kind of procedural elements now with the story with Joey and with Reyes or with Cortez. It's this new twist that's kind of recontextualizing everything that you saw in season 1. Was that an idea that you guys had kind of early on, or was that something new that you came up with?
That was something that I believe Chris Roach, who's another writer on the show with us, he had the idea to kind of have these undercover cops, and we thought it was awesome. I mean, it really worked because, just Joey, just look at him.
He's got the mustache.
He's Magnum PI, man. So, that was something, and we really just kind of took elements of, like, we try to look at all of our favorite kind of stuff and try to just throw it in there and have fun with it. I mean, Lucha's got everything from, like, Star Wars and The Matrix. It's got stuff from all sorts of
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Oh, we got into that. We got into that heavy.
Street Fighter. It's like anywhere where we kind of take things from not only from our childhood but from pop culture and stuff that we thought was cool, and kind of throw it in the mix.
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you about. Can you talk about some of the non-wrestling influences that you guys might be working with on Lucha Underground?
I mean, Masters of the Universe for me.
Absolutely, there you go.
Is a big thing. I'm a huge He-Man fan.
Of course.
I mean, there's everything from Thundercats, Star Wars. Gosh, I mean, we just kind of pull from everything. Harry Potter.
How close was Puma to being called Battle Cat?
Right?
No, he was never close to called Battle Cat, but there was some Battle Cat talk about a Battle Cat costume.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So getting more into these deep sort of mythology kind of stories, that we're working with. We see Rey Mysterio in this kind of training area that we've seen with him and Dragon Azteca Jr. He's pouring shots of tequila. Dragon Azteca Jr. asks, what's the occasion? It turns out his training is complete. Rey's about to celebrate. But before they drink, he hands him an invitation to Aztec Warfare 2, which is happening next week. So excited. Dragon Azteca Jr. asks if he'll be joining him. And of course, Rey Mysterio pulls out an invitation of his own. So we're seeing confirmed participants in Aztec Warfare, but without just like, oh, so-and-so said he's going to be in Aztec Warfare, or like, oh, we'll see this person in action as well. Like, we're getting actual legitimate stories leading to these crazy stamped invitations.
I was going to say, I loved how they had like the wax crest stamp.
Absolutely.
Like old school.
I expect nothing less from the new proprietor, from Katrina.
Great.
But yeah, I love stories like this, and I love the concept of Aztec Warfare too. I wanted to ask kind of about these special events that we've seen. We've seen Aztec Warfare. We've seen grave consequences. What goes into the sort of the conceptualization and the planning of these?
Well, I mean, we don't really have we don't have pay-per-view. So, in the old traditional wrestling model, you build for your 4 to 6 weeks. You get to a pay-per-view, everybody fights, it's over, you move on to you build to the next one. So since we don't have that, and we have, certain amount of characters, we kind of try to stagger it so that we build stories, and then blow them off at a certain point. And sometimes Aztec Warfare is, in a way, one of those major events. Grave consequences, those kind of things became kind of a major event. So in a way, even though we're going to Aztec Warfare to next week, this week was kind of and last week was kind of a culmination of kind of a 3-week pay-per-view.
Sure.
So we kind of build our stories to a big point, blow them off, or start something new, and then just kind of continue on with them.
Right.
At the same time, I feel like nothing's ever really solved, though. There's always lingering things that oh, where's Jack Evans? Is he still the Dragon Slayer?
Right.
What's gonna happen with this person? Or
it's
who's
kind
gonna
of,
turn on who?
Right. Unless you see them die on screen, they could always be somewhere.
And then their ghost could come back.
We know that this is a world that has actual ghosts. So.
And we try to stagger the stories so that way, one story can keep continuing while another one ends and another one starts. So it's always constantly rotating, and there's always something fresh and always something cool. And I think part of the way that we've developed the characters and given them stories and made the audience care about the characters, and enables us to use multiple people in the main event. I mean, this week it was, Mill and Phoenix. Another week it could be Drago and Aerostar, or it could be, Sexy Star and Pentagon. I think we've gotten to the point where we have a good number of stars that can take that role rather than the same people every week.
Right.
So that's kind of been cool and fun, and to me, I think it helps us tell better stories and keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned how these kind of blow-offs happen from time to time. And one of the things that I love is that a lot of times they happen unexpectedly. You don't really hear there's going to be such and such match in a couple weeks, unless it's something huge like Aztec Warfare. So case in point being this next match, a bull rope match between Tejano and Chavo Guerrero. What'd you think of this match, Jimbo?
It was interesting. My favorite part about it was that you didn't have to touch all 4 corners.
Right.
I hate that
stipulation.
Because it always ends the same freaking way, where the guy's trailing behind him and they tug a war and then he tags it.
Right.
I love that aspect.
This is just a straight up ass kicking brawl.
We're just gonna beat the shit out of each other. We just happen to be tied by a rope.
Exactly. Yeah, there happens to be a bull rope involved.
I love when he Irish whipped him in the chairs and took out 2 rows of chairs.
Man. And those chairs are those are legit solid chairs.
Yeah, solid wood chairs. Yeah, they're crazy.
But that crowd couldn't be more excited to be a part of the action,
love it.
What do you think goes into making not only the temple itself, but the crowd, the believers, such an integral part of the show?
I mean, I think they made themselves from the beginning, the believers in the temple, they are a character in the show. The temple itself is a character in the show, and I think that's one of the most important parts about what's made Lucha Underground so successful is that group of people that's there, and the passion and the energy and I think they're very respectful of the talent and the performers and the storylines, and they have fun and they play along, and they're part of it. And I think that really, they know their part in the show, and sometimes they take it very seriously, and it's in my opinion probably one of the best parts about Lucha Underground.
It's kind of like Rocky Horror, where they know when to throw the rice.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they're all so in on it. Yeah. So we see, just once again, just a straight up brawl. Another thing that you'll see on Lucha Underground is so many different styles of matches in one episode, So we see this brawl. We see the crew. We see Cortez Castro and Mr. Cisco walk out on Chavo Guerrero. They're kind of fed up with him abusing them.
It was funny because before they walked out, like, he gives, like, the eye, and I was like, oh, like, maybe this will tie back into, like, him being the undercover cop. And,
Right.
and then, like, I realized the eye was like, no, you guys get in here and take care of this for me. And then they're like, no, screw you.
Yeah.
Like, we're done with you.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because Cortez obviously has bigger fish to fry with Dario Cueto, and so we see just a pretty straight up brawl. We see Chavo Guerrero going up, looking like he's going for the frog splash, taking out some of the slack in the rope, which leads to Tejano yanking him off that top turnbuckle, hitting a sit out powerbomb for the win, and kind of the conclusion to this, as temporary as it may be, who knows, to this kind of story with Chavo. We go back to the back. We see that Mill is not happy with the Disciples of Death.
And then I finally realized we've been calling him, like, Shao Kahn this entire time. He's really Raiden.
Yeah, we saw the electricity. Those guys, just throwing them against lockers, throwing them against each other. Katrina tries to get him to spare one. Yeah. He's not listening to anyone. I love
how he hit Mill back. I was just like,
oh,
man.
I mean, that's the thing. Even though they're literally called the Disciples of Death, they'll still stand up for themselves.
At least one of them.
Yeah. At least one of them. One of them, Barrio Negro. Well, he...
No, Sinestro.
Was that Sinestro? Okay. So after that, we get to one of the greatest vignettes of the season, possibly of the show. We see Dario Cueto and Black Lotus. There we go. We see Dario Cueto and Black Lotus at their sort of compound, their quote-unquote temple, 375 miles away from Boyle Heights.
Slam Town.
That's Slam Town. There's Slam Town. There's Temple Number 2. Parts Unknown's around there somewhere. It's all one big geographical mess. But they're at this temple, and Dario Cueto says he's ready. He says, how about we go take back my temple? And we see him take that key, and we see him unlock the door, and we finally get our first full look at Matanza Cueto. And this dude is straight out of, like, do you remember Joyride?
Yeah.
That horror flick?
I'm looking for candy.
This is Rusty Nail. He's got these blood-splattered coveralls, this grotesque-looking mask, just, like, blood dripping off him.
He reminded me of Machine from 8mm.
Oh, there you go. See, there you go. Exactly.
I didn't think they were going to show him. I thought it was just going to go in and just be dark, and they were going to, like, cut to commercial.
Right.
But then when they showed him, and I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This just got real.
Right, exactly. And just in terms of the physicality and the body type, this dude has zero neck to speak of, and he is gigantic.
He's a beast, covered in blood.
Right, exactly. This is, one of these things, obviously... without pulling back the curtain too much, I want to talk about casting roles like this, casting roles like Matanza, or casting roles like Dario Cueto.
Sure.
What kind of goes into looking for these, and how much of it is brought to the table themselves?
Well, I mean, Dario, we had written the character, and we put out a casting call, just like any other show, and we had a bunch of Cuetos show up, and Luis Fernandez Gil, who plays our Dario, he came in and he was really good the first time. And then the second time, he was even better. And he was just one of the guys who just, after the third callback, the second callback, the third time he was there, he just kept improving and kept becoming this character. And then it was almost the character that I was seeing in my mind come to life. And that's when I just knew. I was like, not only me, but everybody who was there was like, this is the guy. This is the guy. We had to prove a few other people wrong about it, but hey, that always happens. And he went in there and he just took the character and ran with it. And that's been kind of insane. As far as the Matanza character, that was a character we knew at the very beginning that we wanted to have. I mean, Dario had the key for a while. I always wondered, what's the key for?
Right.
But that character was cast a little bit later. We knew last season who was gonna play Matanza, but nobody could figure out who it was, which
Right.
is really cool, and it was right under everybody's nose.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we really, in terms of the viewers, we really only caught a glimpse of his eyes in that very, very last moment of season 1.
Is the king of the Lucha Underground dark match. So, but
That's so awesome though, because like that really shows that like you got to put in your time and work, and like you never really know when your opportunities going to come.
well, no, I mean part of that was he was put in those positions so that way we could get him to be where we thought he could pull off and play the character the right way, and he had to become comfortable with a lot of the things, and the agents like Vampiro and Chavo, like those guys worked with him and tried to get him to where we had a bloodthirsty great white shark, that was that's kind of how it happened. And we knew after a while we were originally going to reveal the Matanza character a lot earlier when we had our original scripts of the show, but it just felt like keeping the audience in the dark a little bit and leaving it to the imagination just started to just become so cool. Then you really cross your fingers later, so you're like, last night when Matanza's going to come out, I'm like sitting there being, oh, please like him, please everybody like him. And it seems like a lot of people were impressed by
Could
him.
have been a Shockmaster situation.
Yeah, you don't want to have it. Yeah, you do not want him to walk through that door and fall down.
Shit.
He just trips.
His mask comes off.
The mask comes off.
Yeah.
It was so intense. I thought he had like a saw blade sticking out of him, but it was just a ripped pocket. Like that's how intense it made me feel.
But I love that this is a universe where we would believe that it was just a jagged piece of metal sticking out.
We did think about having cheesy pyro before he came out of the door.
There you go.
He's got like that dude's head. He's just like, hey, where's the party at? He's just like holding that dude's head. He just like drops it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did get like going back to when he ate Bale's head, basically. That was kind of a moment where it was left sort of up to the imagination. It cuts away. We see the blood splatter. We hear those awful chewing noises. But it created such an image in people's minds, even if they didn't know what he looked like. You see movies like Cloverfield or like Jaws, it's nothing scarier than what your own mind can come up with. But it's, it does seem like people really, really responded really well to this, obviously. What I wanted to know is, are there any moments or personas or anything that people really responded to that you weren't necessarily expecting such a positive response?
Oh, gosh. I think that's probably one. I mean, there's so many moments that have happened on this show when I wasn't expecting a positive response.
Right.
Gosh, there's a bunch of stuff. From Pentagon becoming a dark ninja skeleton man, and training in Japan, and candles going out. I was like, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Drago playing with. Actually, once I saw Drago using nunchucks on a roof with the sun setting, I was like, oh, I think people
we're gonna
but there's been a lot of moments like that. You wonder, especially when you tape so much stuff in advance, like we do. Mm-hmm. You don't really know because you're just hoping, like, please, I hope this works. And you just got to kind of trust your instincts and trust what you did and what you have on tape and hope that it works out and trust what you wrote, that it's going to be good. So it's a little nerve-wracking, but, hey, we're doing okay.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's these, season 2 is obviously, in progress right now. Season 3 tapings are just about to start. After season 3,
Saturday.
Yes, the season 3 tapings start this Saturday. So if you're watching this live, go out, get some tickets, watch it live. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. I caught a taping not too long ago, and without spoiling anything, the fact that people are clapping along to the Terminator beat for Cage is one of my favorite things, personally. But after season 3, what's kind of on the horizon for Lucha Underground?
Hopefully season 4.
Right.
I think that's where we have to probably think is going to happen. Right now that we just know we have season 3, and we're going to take that opportunity. We're going to take that ball. We're going to keep our nose to the ground, and we're going to run with it.
Sure.
And just keep going to work every day by day, and plug away. That's kind of the way we do things on Lucha Underground. It's everybody puts their nose to the ground and hustles and gets it done, and we just try to put on the best show possible.
Right.
And I think that will hopefully equal success. If you give 100%, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
On everything. So hopefully we do it and we get another chance to go back for season 4, because I think people will like it, and hopefully they enjoy what we have for season 3.
Can you speak to the rumblings of maybe a potential feature film at all?
I know that has been something that's been discussed a few times. Basically, in a way, we're shooting so many scenes and all that stuff. It's almost like our schedule is almost like shooting a film. So in a way, it's kind of like I think we could be prepared to maybe do something like that if we did. I don't know when that's going to happen, so everybody's going to speculate, oh, they're making a movie. I just know that that's been something that's been brought up, and I think other things have been brought up, whether it be animation or origin stories or all sorts of stuff like that. So hopefully this brand and this world and this universe will just continue to expand, and I think that's the goal of the network, of the investors, and of the cast and crew.
Definitely.
It makes me think of like Spaceballs, like merchandise, like who doesn't want to see
Lucha Underground, the toilet paper.
Who doesn't want to see like the origin story of like Drago? And,
Yeah, sure.
Whether or not he really is Aerostar's pet,
It's his pet dragon. Yeah. We floated that theory a couple weeks ago. It's one of my favorites.
I love it.
But let's get into tonight's main event for the Lucha Underground Championship. Phoenix cashing in his Gift of the Gods Championship for a shot at Mil Muertes' Lucha Underground Championship. What did you think of this match, Jimbo?
I loved in the entrance alone, like a fan is like trying to get Katrina's attention, and she like licks her finger and touches him, and he like falls away.
Right.
I was like, this is great. Like that's like back to what you're saying. Like the fans are part of the show. They're like as much the character as anything else. Like,
Sure.
I was just like, oh, this is great.
Over at Uproxx, Brandon Stroud had a really apt comparison where he said seeing Katrina in person, which we saw her in studio a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's like getting hit by a truck and then being really happy about it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like it's I couldn't have said it better myself. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch it. Just a couple weeks ago.
Just watch it a few times over.
Fantastic.
And over
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I love when Mil Muertes and Phoenix are together, because it's such a classic power versus speed story. There's nobody that uses power better than Mil Muertes, and nobody that uses speed and agility better than Phoenix. I mean, so many different moments in this match. What were some of the ones that stood out to you?
Well, the biggest thing that stood out to me was the chair shot to the head with no hands.
Right.
Because like you never see things like that anymore, and I thought it was great because it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going for the dive, and Mil just nails him with the chair. Like that was cool, and like I think it's like blood, where it's like if you use it in the right circumstances, it's okay.
Sure.
Like it's not like he took 15 chair shots to the head, all Steve Corino style.
Right.
So I thought that was really crazy, and I'm calling Phoenix's little jump thing just the Phoenix hop, because like
Right.
I've never seen anyone do it, and he does it
The
perfectly.
straddling that top rope. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the Phoenix hop. So like in my notes, I was like, oh, Phoenix hop to 450, Phoenix hop to Hurricane Rana.
Right.
But it was a crazy
Yeah,
crazy match.
and we saw so many moments that kind of symbolize how intense their rivalry is. We saw them ripping each other's masks apart.
Once that started happening, I was like, this is getting ridiculously serious.
Yeah, you expect that from Mil Muertes, but when Phoenix starts doing it, you're like, oh, shit's on right
he's
now.
pissed.
Yeah. We saw blood, we saw mask ripping, we saw a powerbomb onto the announce table, not through it, onto it. That's like, it's one thing for someone to go through a table, but for them to be slammed onto it and for it not to budge at all, that's a whole different level.
I love when they were fighting in the crowd, and Phoenix looks like he's gonna catwalk the railing and jump, and Mil just shoves him
right into the
Right
crowd.
into a couple of dudes in the crowd.
And we talked about the Believers; they couldn't be happier about it. Now, talk a little bit about how kind of, we talked about how Puma and Mundo is kind of the classic rivalry of Lucha Underground, but Phoenix and Mil Muertes, they have this blood feud that is really kind of the biggest, most mythologized aspect of the show, I think.
Definitely. I mean, if Mundo and Puma is the classic, this one is the, I don't know. This rivalry might be bigger than that.
Right.
It's about more than just these two guys, it's the forces of life versus the forces of death, and it's a guy who never quits against a guy who will just keep pounding you into the mat over and over again. And these two performers have so much chemistry. It's crazy. It's like every time they go out there, they just top themselves. They just and they bring the emotion out of the crowd. And I mean, I don't know what else I can say about these guys. I mean, from the first Grave Consequences match, I sit backstage. I took off my headset and I just watched it as a fan. I was like, this is incredible. And it was the same thing with this. We do multiple tapings. A lot of times, 2 or 3 shows. Mil Muertes wrestled that triple threat from episode 7 and this match in the same night.
Wow.
And the guy is just a beast.
Right.
He is a true animal in the ring, and he just brings it. Both those guys are just incredible performance.
Right. And this match, I can't say enough good things about this. I mean, so many moments that jump out at you. Like you said, they've got that chemistry where it really, everything they're doing, even if it's so acrobatically impressive, it looks like they're actually trying to kill each other. I mean, that Uranagi that Mil Muertes hits Phoenix with just looks like it snaps him in half.
And then Phoenix hit a German.
Yeah,
like, holy
crazy,
shit.
right?
He hooks in that waist lock and he's going for it, and Mil is such dead weight you don't think it's ever gonna happen, and then he hits that huge elbow right into the back of the head and gets him almost like a deadlift German.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely so impressive. All of my notes is just like every cool thing that happened.
I love how Vampiro right here is like, or Matt Striker's like, these guys, they look, and Vampiro's like they're about to throw up. And then Matt Strikers follow up to that. Well, if they both throw up, one of them will have the taste of victory in their mouth. I'm just like, way to save it, Matt Striker.
He'll always save it somehow.
Yeah,
bring it full circle.
Great.
But and just I love the kind of the continuity. We've seen that right hand from Mil Muertes. I mean, just it's such an amazing punch. And we know that Phoenix has that scouted. We know that he has counters for it, and he has counters for everything. We see that come to fruition at the end of the match. Mil Muertes goes for his trademark flatliner, and Phoenix turns it from a victory, almost kind of a victory roll, into this bridging like double wrist clutch cradle.
I've only seen one other person do that, and it was Zack Sabre Jr.
Right,
and that was the first time I'd ever seen anyone do that.
Right, exactly. It's such a technically efficient and impressive move that it's ironic that someone that represents 1,000 deaths would lose to something like that and would lose his championship to something like that. But after that cradle, we see the 3 count. We see Phoenix become the brand new Lucha Underground champion in such an incredible moment, and something that really obviously their rivalry's been going on for as long as the show's been going on, but there wasn't a lot of build up to this match. We saw him come out just last week and say that he was cashing in the Gift of the Gods title, and now we see a brand new Lucha Underground champion. And of course, Katrina will not stand for that. She mentions that she declares next week Aztec Warfare 2 will be for the Lucha Underground championship. It won't be for the number 1 contender spot anymore. It will be for the Lucha Underground title. Not only that, Phoenix will be entering number 1 and Mil Muertes will be entering number 20, just like the original Aztec Warfare.
Ring the bell.
Their first match their first match had the same outcome, except Mil Muertes won and he became number 20, and Phoenix became number 1, and it was reversed this time. And
it's I love when things come full circle like that.
Yeah, it was like we didn't really promote this match, but in a way we didn't need to, because it was a whole season.
This rivalry sells itself. Yeah. Talk a little bit about like those moments of foreshadowing. Are some of those accidental?
Oh no, I mean, lots of things like that we kind of think about and come back to and use again, and so that was definitely something that we had planned and thought it would be a pretty cool way for now. The ultimate underdog is really in trouble going into next week.
Right. Yeah, the champion going in is the underdog.
I think I'm more excited that now we get to see people challenge for the coins to get the
for the medallions.
Style. Yeah,
sure.
That's what I'm.
That's
for.
yeah.
Oh,
that's
man.
I love kind of the leading up to that. It's such a long process, but it's so exciting every step of the way. Who's gonna win these medallions? Now who's gonna win the big 7-way? You know.
Mill also hit a nasty spear through the ropes to the outside.
Yeah.
Disgustingly gross.
So good.
Absolutely.
So good.
I love when he spears people. He
cuts him in half.
When
dude.
Phoenix first ripped his mask apart, he just got up, was not gonna stand for it, speared the shit out of Phoenix. Just like, and nobody takes it better than Phoenix either.
Oh man.
Just the torque that he got on that spin.
I mean, you don't want to piss off the force of death incarnate.
Yeah. Right. And that's, I mean, really, the story is so much bigger than wrestling. They're destined to do this forever. Yeah. You know, 1,000 lives versus 1,000 deaths.
It's like Spy versus Spy.
It's like Spy versus Spy. That's exactly right, Jimbo. We needed a Mad Magazine reference on the show. I mean, real quick, you know, I know we're almost at the wrapping up part, but I want to talk a little bit about South by Southwest. You guys were just in Austin.
Yes, we
Tell
were.
us a little bit about that. How'd that go?
Oh my gosh, it was a totally amazing experience. It was really kind of our first, I guess you could say, live event. And it was a showcase at South by Southwest put on by the Rey Network, and we rented out we had this Austin Music Hall where we had, I mean, there had to be probably over 1,000 people there, so it was a little bit bigger crowd than the Temple, but they were just as rowdy and just as into it. We had 4 matches. It was about close to, I would say, an hour and a half or 2 hour show. And we just tried to put on a showcase at kind of a cool, hip, technology, film, music, kind of the newest stuff coming out, and just trying to show, the Lucha Underground is kind of the hot new kid on the block,
right?
And check us out, and there was just a cool crowd, and I think everybody had a blast. It was an amazing experience, and hopefully not only will we go back to Austin again, but hopefully, who knows, maybe this will lead to something down the line. But it was nice to kind of test the waters and see if we could do this somewhere else and see how it turned out. And it was just an incredible night.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, if this means that there might be more touring plans in the future.
I mean, obviously, we're a smaller kind of operation than some of the big companies that can go and tour all over the place. It's just very expensive to do something like that. Right now, I think we're really just focused on making a great TV show. But I think this was a chance to just kind of test and see how things were. Plus, it was at such a cool event where you can kind of really get a lot of buzz, and a lot of people can kind of see what's happening and kind of start to spread the word about this cool little show we do in Boyle Heights.
Absolutely.
I saw people that were at that, and there was a girl dressed as Cobra Moon.
Yes.
And a dude dressed as Pentagon Jr.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and they had awesome costumes, like not just like, oh, let me buy a mask,
right?
Or draw on some face paint, like legit.
There was a girl who had her face painted like Drago, and it was crazy.
Right? She had the black tongue.
I mean, it was like probably 90 degrees in Austin, Texas, and there was people outside at like 2:00 in the afternoon, and we didn't open doors till 7.
Ooh.
They just sat out there in the heat, like chanting and having fun, and we would just go out there, bring them water, and like some of the talent would come out, and cast would come out and say hi to them. So it was just a really fun, cool event, and you could kind of feel that Lucha Underground family is spreading other places.
That's
and
great.
People know about it, and I think it made everybody really feel good about what we're doing, that people other places know about what we're doing.
Absolutely, definitely. Mark, do we have any questions in the chat room before we start to wrap this puppy up?
Well, there have been some rumors about a Netflix being picking up season 1, and a couple of folks in the chat, Gibbs Gibb, wanted to know about that in particular.
I have heard those rumors. I think that going on Netflix would be a game changer for Lucha Underground. Without a doubt, I think that would be a great thing I think the more eyes that can see Lucha Underground, the better. I can't really confirm that any of that stuff is happening, but fingers crossed.
I believe all of the believers are hoping for that.
Right.
Joseph Boza asks, what was the reaction at Lucha when you found out that you were greenlit for season 3 before season 2 had even aired?
It was awesome. I think maybe the first episode had aired and then we found out.
Right.
But it was just incredible news that we're get a chance to do it again. So I think it was extra motivation for everybody to kind of finish season 2, and now we're kind of ready to go back at it this weekend. So it's exciting time. I know everybody has put a lot of hard work into it, so it's nice to kind of keep being rewarded, and we're gonna hopefully hope for season 4 and 5 and 6. And
Right,
7.
of course. And I mean, while a Netflix deal would obviously be a game changer, it's such a perfect fit. It being on the Rey Network, it fits in so great with Robert Rodriguez's sensibilities. Is Robert Rodriguez a fan of you?
Yeah, he's a huge fan, and he has his opinions on the show and about a lot of the he has his favorite characters and things like that. So I know Robert, he can't be there all the time, but he always has his eye on Lucha Underground. I know that for a fact.
Very curious who his favorites would be. Imagine the times I might be up there.
That'd be crazy.
Jimbo, any last questions?
I have a question. So Joey Ryan, he's got an action figure coming out with Figures Toy Company.
Yeah.
And they're doing like independent wrestling figures. So is like Lucha Underground figures something you guys are thinking about, or maybe like working with like the AAA guys who might already have action figures or doing something like
I
that?
know that it has been brought up multiple times. It's kind of a thing that's out of my control. I mostly just kind of handle creative on the TV show. I have made it aware that I think that there would be a market for that, and that wrestling fans are collectors.
Of course.
Wrestling fans love T-shirts, action figures, all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, I would love to have a Drago to put next to my merman.
That would just be so awesome. Like,
Right?
the temple playset. And it opens, like, here's the camera.
Dario's office, drawer full of money and cocaine.
With the breakable window. Like Katrina
Dario
comes
with
with
giant
knives and
Exactly.
no merit to stone accessory.
And then, of course, I mean, we would have to have accessories for our favorite match type. Mark, what's our favorite match?
I was looking for questions. You can't just do that to me,
Come
but
on.
it's...
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Get your own rusty ladder.
See, I'll wait all day for that sound clip, Mike.
How many more episodes are in this season?
So what was this one? Number 8?
This is number 8, yeah.
There are 26 total episodes.
Okay.
With the season finale being a 2-hour finale.
Okay.
As for season 3, we'll see.
We'll see. Oh, man. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming in.
No,
this was an
You were
absolute
excellent.
blast. We're such hardcore fans of this show.
Cool.
Oh, yes.
I appreciate you guys talking about it and spreading the word about Lucha Underground, and hopefully more and more people will find out about it and will tune into Aztec Warfare next week. It's going to be huge.
Yes.
All these worlds collide. Matanza, Rey Mysterio, Dragon Azteca,
Yeah.
Johnny Mundo, Prince Puma, everybody's coming.
So much
it's
happening.
It's going to be nuts.
So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, go look at season 1 on iTunes right now, newly available. And I think everything that's aired of season 2 is on iTunes.
Correct.
Right?
You can get a season pass for season 2, and just you can get it the next day.
There you go. Next day. Where can they find you on Twitter, social media?
Oh yeah, you can follow me at Chris DeJoseph on Twitter, and follow Lucha El Rey. It's our Lucha Underground Twitter. They got lots of cool stuff that they put out on there. So check it out.
Definitely, Jimbo.
You guys just opened a pro wrestling tea store also.
Yeah, there is a pro wrestling tee store.
Yeah.
You can buy some stuff. So especially for those who do not live in the United States, that will be your way to get your Lucha Underground merch.
There you go.
So
Awesome.
everybody, please support us and help Lucha Underground keep rolling. I think the more fan support we have of people watching things, buying those kind of stuff. Sorry, but it does help.
Sure, absolutely, everything.
You can follow me on Twitter at the Jimbo Slice with 2 E's. I made this documentary about the Young Bucks. Buy it at highspots.com. There's tons of people from Lucha Underground in it, like Brian Cage and Rick Knox and Willie Mack and Ty Matthews.
Absolutely. As always, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA. If you're watching the video stream, it should be down in that cool little lower third right there. You can find me on various other after shows, Second Chance, Monday Night Raw, The Magicians, all that good stuff. Remember, if you're on iTunes, be sure to check out Lucha Underground. Be sure to check out The Tomorrow Show. Be sure to check us out. Comment, rate, review, 5 stars if you're nasty, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, a comment. We want to hear from you because we want to keep talking about Lucha Underground. But for now, we'll be right back here, same time, same channel next week, talking Aztec Warfare 2. So make sure you don't miss it, Thursday night, 10 p.m. But until then, Viva la Lucha!
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.